I want you to start out listing perfect squares. And I know we all remember what perfect squares are. Things like 4, 9, 16. So I'm going to have you all to start doing that while I try to get the computer to be my friend again.
How many do you want us to list? You know the number line's endless.
Keep going until I have you to do something else. Yes.
Yeah, I'm only going up to 12. I'm only going up to 12.
Go to the left with that. That's the first number. Push on that. That first number.
Perfect squares are all constant.
Dr. Jennifer, how do you toggle this over to the, so that we finally got the computer up?
The next thing that I want you all to do is to factor a basic binomial.
Okay. There we go. There's factoring basic.
All right, good evening, class.
Good evening.
Thank you all for checking in with me, and don't forget that you also have to check back out before you can leave. Okay, for your warm-ups, the first thing that I wanted you to do was to list perfect squares. So, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. I know it's only the first week of school. I'm working on it. Tiffany. Tiffany, thank you. Tiffany, what was a perfect square that you came up with? 25. Okay, she got 25. Okay, so 25 is what squared? 5. That's 5 squared. Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, if you'll list those for me, please. Thank you. Yes, Lyndon?
I got 252,004.
Wow, Lyndon, I am so proud of you. Now, that is what number squared?
502.
Wow. Lyndon, you are improving every day. I'm so proud of you. All right. The next thing I want you all to do is to factor a binomial. Okay. Does everyone see how I did this here? First, I started out with w squared minus 2w minus 15. Now, Eric, how did I go from w squared minus 2w minus 15 to w squared plus 3w minus 5w minus 15?
You multiplied w times w to give you w squared. W times 3 gave you 3w. Then negative 5 times w gave you negative 5w, and then negative 5 times 3 equals negative 15.
Thank you. Now Eric did go down to the third line, but do you all remember when you want to factor a binomial, starting at the top line? Now this is what I typically do. I know that other teachers have you do it different ways, where you have a parentheses here and a parentheses here, and you put the signs inside. So if that's how you want to do it, that is fine with me. Whatever works with you, whatever helps you to understand it. For me, I have to write everything out. If I don't write it out, I forget it, or I get confused and I don't know how I did it. So when we're doing this, you have your a, which will be the coefficient in front of your first term, which is w squared. So for this instant, our a is 1. Then our b would be negative 2. And that's our second term, the coefficient of the second term. And our c is the third term, which is the negative 15. When you are binomial, remember, you want to multiply A and C together. Find out what that gives you. In this case, we'll have 1 times a negative 15, so Liz, what does that give me?
1 times negative 15.
Right, that gives me negative 15. So the next thing I want to do is to figure out what factors of that number, or A times C, will give me B. So Howard, what factors of negative 15 would give me negative 2?
What factors of negative 15 would give us negative?
Yes. I'm sorry, let me rephrase. Sorry. Okay, what factors of negative 15, if you added them together, would equal B, which for our case is negative 2?
Negative 5 and 3.
Negative 5 and a positive 3. So that's why I wrote in the middle, you see I have a positive 3W minus a 5W. That's why I wrote that there, because it's going to help me a little bit later. Yes, Jonathan?
Ms. Frazier, how come you don't write that big X on the side so that we know how to do that?
You know what, that's because I'm old, and that's a relatively new thing, which I've seen some of you do, which I think is really cool. I think that's very interesting.
What's the X?
What's that X?
The X is,
Make an X. Oh,
That new math, man.
Invisible ink.
That new math, that.
okay, well, how about this? Here's your X, okay? Now Jonathan, help me out, because I can't remember exactly how you all do it.
At the top of the X, you put A times C.
Okay, so that's
From
where
the-
our negative 15 would have gone, so that'd be like here where my head is. How about that?
Yep, and then down at the bottom, you put your B term.
Okay, so my B term is going to be negative 2, so that'll just be right here, that'll be my tummy. Okay, so this is where I'm at.
And now what you have to do is you have to factor the one at the top so that it equals the one on the bottom when you add them together.
Okay, so does everyone understand what he's saying? It's very similar to what I just did, but as opposed to writing it out so formally and officially, there's another way that you can do it. And I know some of your teachers from 8th grade or 9th grade have taught you how to do that. And again, if that works for you, that is A-okay with me. All right, once I have my W squared plus 3W minus 5W minus 15, I grouped my W plus 3W together with my negative 5W minus 15. Then I factored out a W of my first, I factored a W out of my first two terms. So now I'm left with the W times the quantity W plus 3 minus 5 times the quantity W plus 3. And I did the same thing for the last two terms that I did for the first two terms. I just took out a common factor and then wrote down what I had left. And then I'm just going to group the things that are left outside of the parentheses together. So I'll have W minus 5, that quantity times the quantity W plus 3. And this is just another example of doing pretty much the same thing. I know at this point, I know you all know how to do this. This was just a warm-up refresher. Okay. So today what we will be covering is factoring using a particular kind of pattern, because there are a couple of patterns that you can use when you're factoring. I personally really like this because for me, it makes life easy. When you see perfect squares, you know what you can do. Okay, I want you to try this now. Pick two consecutive numbers. For example, I chose, you could go 1, 2, or 2, 3, 3, 4, just so you know what consecutive numbers mean. Okay, I should see everyone writing this down. Okay, if you're headed